समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Even as the movie Dhurandhar becomes a blockbuster hit, literally driving a frenzied conversation not just across India but within Pakistan itself, the movie has shone a light on inconvenient truths for Pakistan, chief among them being Pakistan's patronage of terrorism. While India knows that story all too well, in the last few hours, the world has been alerted to the horror of what these terror links can actually do. A horrific targeted mass shooting in Australia is now being linked in media reports to a man of Pakistani origin and his son, a father-son duo who are the chief suspects of what we've seen play out over the weekend when Jews were targeted by this father and son, the father who arrived in Australia from Pakistan. I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo story. On the program today, in a moment from now, as the world is jolted by what has unfolded in Australia, we'll be talking to leading strategic affairs expert as well as author Tilak Deveshar as we look at the events that have unfolded not just in Australia, but the events, the truths that have been in a way brought into sharp relief by the stupendous success of the movie Dhurandhar. Whether you've seen the film or not, and of course the movie can be a separate debate, the issues that are flagged in the film, terrorism, 26/11, the parliament attack, the IC-814 hijacking, the issue of Balochistan, how Balochis are treated within Pakistan, Pakistan's export of terror to India, of course, but also other terror attacks around the world. That's something that eerily led to an intersection of real and real life, as we saw what play out in Australia did. As I mentioned, a man who came to Australia from Pakistan several years ago and his son, who was born in Australia, are now being treated as the chief suspects in this horrific mass shooting, targeted shooting of Jews that has taken place in Australia over the weekend. Let's introduce our guest today. Our newsmaker, Tilak Deveshar, is with us. He's the author of many books, including the Balochistan Conundrum, which particularly looks at Balochistan, which is now so much in the headlines because of how Dhurandhar has, in a sense, mainstreamed that conversation. And of course, he's a key strategic affairs expert who's also been a leading member of the NSAB. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. Let me start by asking you to talk a little bit about what we've seen unfold in Australia. While, of course, an official assessment by the Australian government is awaited, this has happened just yesterday. It's clearly a targeted killing of Jews during Hanukkah. And what we have seen is that the two main suspects, one killed, one being treated, the father and son of Pakistani origin. The father, in fact, came to Australia from Pakistan. The irony is that Pakistan is trying to distance itself, condemning this attack, even as somebody who was Pakistan born and raised is now linked directly with what we've seen happen. Your first thoughts on that, sir, before we get to how Dhurandhar has mainstreamed some of the issues that we'll be talking about.
Thank you, Balkha. Thank you for having me on your show. It's indeed tragic. It's unfortunate that the Jews were targeted in Australia. I don't recollect any other mass killing in Australia in recent memory. So this is doubly unfortunate that, something like this to happen. But, the first thought that came to my mind, and I was looking at some Pakistani YouTube channels too, their first thought too was, oh my God, I hope this is not a Pakistani involved in this attack. Pakistan reduced itself to being a terrorist hub, not only in reality, but also in imagination of the people. That anywhere in the world something happens, the first thought is there a Pakistani connection? Now, if the leadership, both the military and the civil leadership of Pakistan, has not woken up to this reality for all these years, despite the evidence being on the writing on the wall, will this evidence, this incident, make them get up and say, hey, what are we doing? What have we done to our country? Can you imagine the plight of a country and the plight of a people? People look at them suspiciously wherever in the world they go because of incidents like this.
Absolutely. And India has paid the price over the decades and has also fought with parts of the Western media, parts of the Western world, for them to understand what is at stake. Now you see the Australians, they will investigate this. They will, of course, look at whether this was a father and son acting on their own or whether this links back to Pakistan, though it has been pointed out, if we can just turn back to those images, that the sort of ease with which automatic weapons were being wielded and people were being targeted points to some sort of training. I don't know what you thought. What was your impression when you saw the videos?
There's something more ominous to this. It's not just father and son who are now in Australia. There are some reports that are unconfirmed as yet. Investigations will bring it out. They possibly made 2 or 3 trips to Pakistan before the shooting. And they met people in Pakistan, including from the army. I don't know whether this links up, whether this is factually correct or what are the ramifications of this. I hope the son who has been shot is in hospital. When he is interrogated and questioned, maybe he'll reveal something. So, this is, so it's not only the Pakistani connection of origin, but Pakistani connection of recent, if it turns out to be true. Now, what does that tell you about Pakistan? How should the world then be looking at Pakistan? I mean, you can't put it under the carpet any longer. You can't keep saying, no, this is not don't blame the whole. And you see, the other thing, the person who stopped this boy and caught him was another Muslim.
Absolutely.
But he was not a Pakistani. So, that tells you the difference between a Pakistani Muslim and a non-Pakistani Muslim. Right? The person who is not a Pakistani Muslim, he is the one who defends the others and stops this guy from continuing with his atrocities.
Yeah.
That's
a really important point. And for those in our audience who don't know, a fruit seller on the beach, an Arab Muslim, originally, in fact, from Syria, is the one who actually wrestles with the terrorists. He snatches the gun and he basically gives his life to save other lives. So it is also important to mention that this is not in any way about Muslim bashing. This is about a state whose philosophy, and I mean Pakistan, is deeply entrenched in terrorism. And I think that's the distinction you're drawing, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is something which Pakistan must wake up and smell the coffee. The world must take notice of this. That why is it that Pakistani Muslim is still shooting in Australia, a country which has given them shelter, which has given them hope, which has given them education, work. And what has triggered this outrage, to pick up a gun and start killing people on a holiday on a beach?
Yeah.
And I hope Australia too doesn't push it under the carpet and trying to be politically correct. In fact, I was watching Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech this morning. And he was outraged. He said 4 months ago, we warned Australia that what you're doing is appeasing them. You're creating more appeasement. You're creating, and hinting that something like this is going to happen. And the Australians did nothing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a wake-up call, and it's one that India has been urging the world to take note of for years altogether. This brings me to how, a blockbuster hit of a film, Dhurandhar, has actually brought to the forefront so many issues that people like yourselves have been studying and talking about for years altogether. And I'm, of course, talking about, the issue of Pakistan's patronage of terrorism, the Balochistan question, and whether it's IC-814, whether it's the Parliament attack, whether it's the Mumbai attacks, whether it's how the people of Balochistan are treated in their own country. We have seen some of these issues play out in the movie, which is, of course, a raging success. And by the way, is being obsessively talked about in Pakistan, in India, of course, but also in Pakistan. Now, I want to pick up some of these issues because I know you've spent some years studying them, more than some years, and you're the author of Pakistan, the Balochistan conundrum. And, the Baloch are at center stage of this movie. And I know we're not talking about the movie, but I want to talk about the issues that the movie has thrown up. Today, where do we stand? Because we live in a week where a few things have happened. You have Pakistan sentencing its former ISI chief for the first time, Faiz Hameed, to 14 years in prison. That's his famous shot of him having a cup of tea as Kabul fell to the Taliban. He was the first person there. Because he was seen to be Imran Khan's man, this is seen to be an attack on Imran Khan. He's been sentenced to jail. There's, by the way, I don't want to give away spoilers from the movie, but there's a very interesting visual reference to Imran Khan in the movie Dhurandhar. And now you have Imran Khan locked away. You have an ISI former chief locked away for 14 years, court-martialed for the first time. Parallel to that, you have the Pakistan regime sucking up to Trump. Washington approving a $686 million upgrading of the F-16s. And you have the ongoing simmering challenge of Balochistan and how the people of Balochistan are treated by Pakistan. But this time you have an all-powerful army chief, the field marshal, who with the constitutional amendment has consolidated power. Now, I want you to look at Pakistan today and tell me what you see.
You see, as you rightly mentioned, Pakistan is no longer a functioning democracy. You see, the key element of a democracy is separation of powers. You have an executive, you have a legislature, you have a judiciary. The judiciary has been emasculated by setting up the Federal Constitutional Court. That is gone. Now, as far as the executive is concerned, the armed forces are under the executive. But by appointing the Chief of Defence Forces, giving him a 5-year constitutional term and plus another 5 years, the armed forces are no longer under the effective control of the executive. So the key elements of democracy in Pakistan no longer exist. And it can call itself a democracy, it can hold the next round of elections too. But the reality is that constitutionally, Pakistan is no longer a democracy. Now, given this one-man central control, whenever power is centralized in any part of the world, especially in Pakistan, and this man has gone on record to say that he wants Pakistan to be a hard state, a hard country, all elements of national power working in unison, and what he left unsaid was working in unison under him. So he wants to have centralized control, a constitutional dictator. Neither Ayub nor Yahya or Zia or Musharraf had the kind of constitutional authority this man has got, thanks to the weak-kneed politicians. So he, in a sense, that way different. Now, having collected all this power and believing in a hard state means what? Wherever you have a problem, you exercise a danda. This hard state is going to make Pakistan even more brittle. And it is going to be heading towards a disaster if this man continues. But in any case, leave that aside because that is Pakistan's problem. Coming to Balochistan, yes, I studied the Balochistan in certain amount of depth. And the problem of Balochistan, if it sums up in one sentence, is that they have 44% of the land area of Pakistan, but just 5 to 6% of the population. So they are not a critical mass of population who can make their voice heard. This is just about 15 or 16 seats in the National Assembly. They are not central to the formation of any government in Pakistan. Punjab, if any party wins Punjab, forms the government. It doesn't give a damn about Balochistan. So the Baloch can't get their voices heard. Even in the secretariat in Balochistan, Most of the people are outsiders. They don't have a role in the bureaucracy. Sui gas was discovered in Balochistan. But for about 50 or 40 years, there was no piped gas even in Quetta, let alone other parts of Balochistan. So the exploitation of Balochistan has been so extensive and continuous since 1948 that the people have been totally alienated. Now, they have a weakness. The weakness is, as I mentioned, very little population. So the people Baloch have been up in arms since 1948, since the forcible accession of the princely state of Kalat, as Balochistan was then called. Now you have a strong civil society movement. People and now women have taken to the streets because the men have all been disappeared or killed or bumped off. So the women, and a very conservative society, women have now come out, and you see in your photographs that you are showing, they're all women holding posters of their children. A very tragic term has come out in Balochistan, and popularized in Balochistan, called half widows, where women don't know whether they are widows or they are married. Their husbands have been missing for 15 years. Can you imagine the trauma that a woman is undergoing? So this is the problems that Balochistan has. Exploitation, not enough human resources. So a film like Dhurandhar, from what little trailers have I seen, you see the Baloch dancing and the Baloch having a sort of a central, this releases and tells them that the world is paying attention to them. The film has got nothing to do with Baloch human rights. On the contrary, but it tells the people there is a community called Baloch. And there is a community of this Baloch are being exploited. That's why I think that the film has had such resonance, because it puts them on the center. No one in Pakistan would ever make a film on Balochistan. Today, you cannot even do a program on Baloch. Hameed did a program and he was shot. There was a lady holding, in Karachi, at a bookshop called The Second Floor. She organized a closed-door discussion on Balochistan, and when she came down, she was killed in cold blood. That is the kind of pressure, the kind of exploitation, or the kind of lid that is put on Balochistan. So that's why a film like this is so impactful.
Yeah, I want to actually come to the film for just a second, and again, not to make it about the film, but as you said, the fact that it has mainstreamed the Balochistan conversation. In Pakistan, nobody talks about Balochistan, at least now. People, even in India, who may not have known a lot about Balochistan, are talking about, okay, what is Balochistan? Who was Rahman Baloch? Who was what about this movement for an independent Balochistan? And there is, without giving away too much, there is a very strong visual image in the film where you see people burying their dead. You see the mass graves of the Balochis, while you also see their culture and their song and their dance. I want to ask you, sir, again, without making this about the movie has triggered a very interesting conversation in the Baloch community. And some of them want Indians to know that we as people are not against India. We are not against India at all. So please don't walk away with the wrong impression. When you see the movie is a great movie, by the way. I saw it. I loved it. I should say that on record, and I would recommend everyone to watch it. I just want you to talk a little bit about the links, between sort of the mainstream political parties of Pakistan, how they have handled the Baloch question, how the Baloch people have not ever gone against India for the most part. So I think that's something the Balochis are tweeting about. So I want you to talk a little bit about that.
You see, the Baloch are a very secular people. They are conservative. They are Muslim. But they are secular. And I'll give you one classic story. Somebody asked a Baloch that it's Ramzan and how come you're not fasting? He said, I don't have to because my Sardar is fasting for me. This kind of thing doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah.
So the Baloch are not a fundamentalist, not a, that kind of a radical Islamic society. They're very conservative. In fact, in 1947-48, perhaps the only place where the Hindus were not targeted during the partition riots was in Balochistan. They all protect and revere Hingilaj Mata. There was a large community of Hindus who used to live behind Akbar Bukti's house, the village, and he was protecting them. And when Kalat was in the princely state, the finance minister was invariably a Hindu. And the last Hindu finance minister actually fought against the British and died fighting against the British. So there is a long, and they have very close connection with Tamil, the
Really?
language, Balochi
Really?
language. Yeah, there are common words. Like Tanni is water. It's similarly in Balochi. You have Uri, which is rice. The same word. So obviously there is a linkage going back thousands of years, where the language is common and there's a lot of commonality. So as far as the Baloch is concerned, people who know or read about the Baloch are fully aware that they have never been no question of being anti-India. That they are the ones who protected whatever little Hindu population. They were never targeted. The Hindus were never targeted in Balochistan.
Yeah,
So
and
this
that's
is something which is the revival, of people to come to know of the real Baloch society.
Yeah, it's a very important point to make because because of the larger than life role played by Akshay Khanna, who does an impression of Rahman Dekayat. But of course, this is a movie, and as I said, it's a very compelling movie. I think the good thing is that we are talking now beyond what happens in Punjab, in Pakistan. We're actually looking at Balochistan. People are actually curious now. They're reading up about Balochistan. I also urge all of you to read Mr. Devesh's book on Balochistan, one among many that he's authored. I want to talk a little bit about the ISI. Again, Dhurandhar has a very strong sequence. I don't want to give away bits on how the ISI was monitoring the 26/11 terrorists in real time. ISI linked Pakistan Army sort of officials. And we know this is in the dossiers that India has in real life handed over to Pakistan, multiple dossiers with this evidence. We also have the terror tapes of 26/11, which show these conversations. When you see a man like Faiz Hameed sent to jail, a former ISI chief, what kind of impact do you think this is going to have down the ranks? Because while the Pakistan military has always sort of closed ranks behind whoever's the army chief, this is a new situation. This is a new situation because it is actually a lieutenant general who's being court-martialed and sent to jail. How do you see this playing out?
You see, the important thing to realize about Faiz Hameed, that he has really been charged for political engineering. Not because the army does not do political engineering. He was tasked specifically to do that. But he started batting on his own. He did not do what the army chief had authorized him. He on his own established a link with Imran Khan and tried to secure his political future. He wanted to be army chief, and using Imran Khan. Now, he has been punished for that because the army will not accept and man walking, irrespective of where he is, batting on his own, setting up relationships with politicians, which has not been authorized by the army chief. So the message to the rank and file and down the army is that don't forget that whatever the army does is with the authorization of the army chief. You cannot be a lone ranger. You cannot do things on your own. So while some of the charges are of corruption, basically it is to demolish this line beyond the pale, as it were, which Faiz Hameed had gone, trying to do stuff on his own. So, therefore, I don't think so it will demoralize the ISI. I don't think so it will have a negative impact on the army because people realize, there is one golden rule in the army, which is almost carved in stone outside the GHQ, that the army has favorite politicians. They cannot allow a politician to have favorite generals. Right? And this is what Faiz Hameed, with his relationship with Imran Khan, was trying to do. Now you will find Pakistani loggers, vloggers saying, no, he was loyal to the army. He wasn't loyal to Imran Khan. That's all nonsense. He was. He wanted to use Imran Khan to become the next army chief after Bajwa retired. And the reason, and there's so much of bad blood between Asim Munir and Faiz Hameed. One was that ISI thing that Faiz Hameed replaced Asim Munir as ISI chief within 6 months because he ran foul of Imran Khan. And then both were in contention for being army chief when Bajwa retired. And because Imran Khan had been was no longer Prime Minister. He lost out on the vote of confidence, and the Sharifs had taken over, and the Sharifs picked Asim Munir. As an aside, Nawaz Sharif is the most unfortunate politician in Pakistan. He has always picked the wrong army chief.
He thought Bajwa, Munir, Musharraf,
Abdul Wahid Kakar. And Ziauddin Bhatt, he appointed the ISI chief against Musharraf.
Yeah.
Wrong choices of army chiefs, and finally Asim Munir.
Yeah, absolutely. Musharraf sent him into exile. He thought Bajwa would be his guy. That didn't work out. And I mean, Munir, of course, has been, in a way, the bap of all of them. He's probably, would you say Munir is the most powerful military chief, as you called him, a constitutional dictator, after Zia, maybe?
No, Zia had to amend the constitution, which was, and different. This chap has gone beyond that. He got the parliament to pass the 26th and the 27th constitutional amendments. That has emasculated the judiciary, made him CDF. He's got the constitution to be amended. And very quietly, without ruffling feathers, without, sort of abolishing the constitution, he has done away with democracy. He's certainly the most powerful army chief.
Ever?
What he does with that, that's a different matter.
You are saying that he's the most powerful army chief ever?
Ever.
That's a big statement.
But that's true. Because he's done everything constitutionally. He can't be tried under Article 6 for treason. All the other army chiefs could. All of them overthrew the constitution. Ayub did. Yahya did. Ziaul Haq did. Musharraf did. This man hasn't done it.
So let's, in the end, sir, talk about what that means in terms of implications for India's strategic interests. Now, Sheikh Hasina, who continues to live in exile in India, her son said to me and to others that he believes that the Delhi Red Fort blast, the Jaish-e-Mohammed links to that blast, he believes that elements of those terror groups are now operating out of Bangladesh. You've had the ISI chief, the current ISI chief, echo Munir in saying that India's next threat, the next attack will come from the east.
No,
you have Bangladesh. Munir said it, and then the ISI chief repeats that. So he echoes Munir. That's what I'm saying. He repeats that. My question to you is, you have this powerful army chief, whom you call Pakistan's most powerful army chief ever. You have the rapprochement between the Yunus regime in Pakistan and the Munir-led regime in Munir-led regime and the Yunus-led regime in Bangladesh. They're coming together, as you see in the pictures. You have now these kind of Islamized terror groups operating out of Bangladesh. You have Munir saying the next attack will come from the east, and the ISI doubles down on that. This is the year of Pahalgam and Op Sindoor. We have seen what happened in Delhi with the car blast. What do all of these developments, and I should also include Trump in this mix, because these guys have sucked up to Trump, there may be business links, whatever the reasons are. You have a soft Trump willing to show them some softness. What does this in the end mean for our strategic interests, our security challenges?
So let's just look at Munir per se first, before we talk about the other inputs. He is staunchly anti-India. He is very anti-India, possibly because his parents migrated from India. He's also from Jalandhar. He migrated from India and came to Pakistan during partition. So that anti-India hatred is in him. Then, because he is Hafiz al-Quran, he feels that he believes in this two-nation theory, that Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. That's the speech that he made.
Yeah.
He's talked about blasting Indian dams with missiles. So let's take it for the fact that he's extremely, extremely anti-India. He wants a hard state with all factors, elements of national power under his control. And now he also has the nuclear button completely under his control. That's Munir. Now, Bangladesh is going to be a worry for us because Northeast, and they have, this chicken's neck, and the Chinese showing an interest in the Lal Munir Hut, that airfield in Rangpur division. But the good thing is that India is aware of these risks. They are aware of the threat that Bangladesh-Pakistan nexus could pose for us. And I think the remedial measures or anticipatory measures have already been taken in those vulnerable areas. So ultimately, what Munir is going to fall back on is terrorist incidents, because they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the money, they can't launch an attack on India, they can't fight against India. But he will do pinpricks. And Barkha, you must realize that today the situation in Pakistan, security-wise, is probably the worst. 2025 has been the worst year in terms of terrorist incidents in a decade. If you look at the statistics that are published quarterly, there's been a 46% increase in quarter 3 over quarter 2 in terms of terrorist incidents.
In Pakistan. In Pakistan.
Yeah, in Pakistan. 265 people died in terrorist incidents, of which more than 100 were uniformed personnel.
Yeah.
As the army chief, there's nothing that he can do about it. He is unable to do anything about in Balochistan or in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So what does he do? What Pakistan has always done is to divert attention. And divert attention, the best way to do it is poke India in the eye, like what they did in Pahalgam. So that's one danger which we have to factor in. About the US, let me just say this. The US is already finding out that whatever Shehbaz and Munir had sold to them is a lie. In the next 2 months, you will find President Trump turning 180 degrees. You see now, for example, this rare earth elements that you're showing, these rocks.
Yeah.
The US Geological Survey has determined that Pakistan does not have any significant quantities of rare earth elements. This is a report, published report. So Trump is going to say, hey, you made a fool of me. There's no oil, massive reserves of oil. There are no rare earth elements. So what am I doing? Now, this F-16, $680 million was signed a deal in 2022. And this is sort of fulfillment of that. It's not something new that President Trump has done at this stage, right? So we need to just keep that in mind. I am not too worried about the US outreach to Pakistan, because President Trump is a very transactional man. Once he finds that Pakistan is not able to deliver what he had promised in terms of rare earth elements, in terms of oil, in terms of Bagram,
Yeah.
Afghans are saying, get the hell out of here. There's no way Bagram is going anywhere near you back again. Iran is then the only factor left. I don't think so. Pakistan would like to mess around with Iran too much because of their own Shia population. They have about 23% population in Pakistan is Shia, which is beholden to Iran as their spiritual head, spiritual sort of leader. So I think Pakistan is in a very extremely difficult position.
Just a last thought, sir, before we close. Given that Dhurandhar as a movie has sparked a national conversation, we need people to be more aware that there's this line in the film that the terrorists we have to get it wrong only once. We being the Indian state, the security agencies, the intelligence agencies, you have to make just one mistake for a terrorist to slip through, right? And I think we have to make our people aware, our citizens aware, that it isn't easy. This is a very, very difficult job, because if we are to retain our open way of life, our normal way of life, our open society, then we take this risk. Pahalgam reminded us of this, Delhi reminded us of this. So I just want a last thought from you on what people need to understand about the challenge of terrorism that you think we still don't.
No, I think you're absolutely right. All of us as citizens have to back the state 110% as far as terrorism is concerned. You can't let down your guard. And it's not only the man on the border or the intelligence agencies working in the hinterland who have to detect or who will detect terrorism. All of us have to be extremely aware of what's happening in our neighborhood. Look at this university, totally fake.
Absolutely.
And it was allowed to exist, continue to exist. So we have to be extremely careful, because as Pakistan goes down the tube, it's going to try and hit out and draw attention to itself, draw attention to its problems with India, join India in a strategic conversation using the US. So all these things are going to be there. Well, Barkha, if I can say one thing, you talked about Balochistan and
Yeah.
Balochistan coming back into public attention. You know, the Baloch groups, what they really need, not your any kind of physical support. It is that you can amplify their voices. We have so many people on X.
Yeah.
There are so many people, Baloch people who are on X. We need to follow them. And through your medium, let me say openly, we need to follow them, amplify their voices, convey their voices to different parts of the world in large numbers. Look what we did with Maldives and what we achieved with Maldives. You know, the Indian Peterati got after Maldives, and very soon they had to turn 180 degrees. Likewise with the Baloch. We need to support them. We need to, because they are a secular people. They've always stood by you, you know, right from 47 onward, historically.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tilak Deveshwar. Mr. Deveshwar is the author of several books, including one on Balochistan, which looks at Balochistan as Pakistan's conundrum. In fact, that's what the book is called. Please do read it. If you're interested in the subject, you learn a lot, as the rest of us have. Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure. And as Tilak Deveshwar said, if the movie has got you and your mind ticking, you can start by following a number of people, activists from Balochistan who want their voices amplified. Start there and learn from what they're going through. Thank you so much, sir. Pleasure talking to you. Namaskar. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.